Good morning. Welcome to our Monday morning meditation. I'm coming to you from my parents' house in Nashville, Tennessee. And it's so good to be here with you all today. For those of you who are on a little early, I had on the screen a process I'm going to reshare in a moment. But we are full into our new year and bringing our new year commitments with us. And if you have paid attention your entire lives, you have probably experienced this yourself or seen it with others, where we make our New Year's resolutions for the new year, and by February we are back to our old ways of doing whatever we're doing. Maybe one or two things have come with us, but mostly they go by the wayside. Not that we're not still growing and learning and pushing ourselves forward, but those New Year's resolutions can kind of be put on the wayside. Life gets in the way, it gets too hard, and we just kind of revert back to what's familiar and what is easy. And as I was looking at this over the years, my spiritual education has been, grow, move forward, and not even so much on the outside, although that's always part of our process. Our inner work shows up on the outside, but the inner work is how the outside shows up. It always comes from within, those changes that we make, and those changes then manifest on the outside. But it's the inside sometimes that's the hardest, even more than the outside. If a New Year's resolution, let's say, is to go to the gym, well, there's a lot of obstacles to do that. There's, if you live in the north, there's the weather to contend with. And if you live in the south, there's yourself to contend with, and life and other people. And, we can come up with all sorts of reasons and point to things on the outside so those things don't happen. But it's the inside is where it is falling down in the first place, right? And I'm right there with the best of them when things fall down. So I understand it. Over the years, as I have listened to my spiritual mentor, my spiritual teacher talking, I'm like, she's talking about a formula. There's a formula in what she's saying. And she probably said that 1,000 times before it finally sunk into my head. But I was teaching a class one time about our spiritual commitments and what happens in that process. And that's what we're going to talk about today, because if we're aware that this happens every single time, then when that resistance to stretching outside of ourselves comes up, we can go, there it is, right on time. Okay, this is really challenging, but I can do this. I've got this. And the resistance is where the growth comes from, not the achievement or accomplishment of the commitment or the goal. So in the process, you've heard all this before, right? This is a typical Facebook post, right? With little flowers all over it. Keep going, you can do it. But if we know that that's part of the process, we got it. We can talk ourselves through it, be a good friend to ourselves when that resistance comes up. So I'm just going to share this because it's easier to really talk about when I have it up here on the screen again. So when I was teaching the class, I called it Process for Taking a Spiritual Step, but you can call it whatever you want to, because this is true whether you are working on a spiritual commitment or it's all spiritual, everything's spiritual, right? But if you're working on a physical commitment for your health, or a work commitment in your field, or whatever your relationship commitment, friendship commitment, whatever it is, when we have a commitment to a new idea, we get so excited about it. We feel the excitement of the new idea. It's like, oh my gosh, this is a brilliant idea. It's a brilliant idea to go to the gym 3 times a week. Whatever, maybe we start with 5 times and we peel it back to 3 times. 3 times is reasonable during a busy week with our busy lives. Anyway, whatever. But whatever the commitment is, we get excited about it. And that momentum, that motivation carries us until it doesn't. But it's the new energy of the new idea, if you can think of it that way. And then what comes up is our resistance. Well, the motivation is gone. You know, I can't tell you how many people have come into my therapy office saying, I just don't feel motivated. And they want therapy to give them motivation. And their motivation doesn't come in a jar or a bottle or a pill or anything. It comes from within us. And what I have learned over the years with myself as well as in my work is that when we keep our commitment that we have made to ourselves and we push through that resistance, our motivation feeds itself, but we have to get through the resistance. There's motivation on the other side of our resistance that comes up, but we have to get through that resistance. And what is our resistance? It's our subconscious patterns that come up, you know, whether it's just our muscle memory of our routine or our mental memory of the routine, or if it's, you know, some faulty belief that we're holding about ourselves, like I'm not good enough, or I'm not worth taking care of my body, or, you know, just using that example, or whatever those negative beliefs are that we're holding about ourselves, those stand in our way between our commitment to our new idea and achieving that. And that's where the work is, right where it says resistance. That's where the work is. And so as we work with the resistance, we can journal about it. Like, okay, why is this so hard for me? What is really standing in my way? Am I just being lazy? I don't think lazy is a pure emotion or behavior, because lazy is just a label that is on top of a lot of other things. Well, why am I lazy? That would be the next question. Why am I being lazy? Why am I not doing the thing that I committed to? You know, okay, so the motivation isn't there, but do I need to reevaluate my commitment? Was my commitment a good idea in the first place, or was it just kind of a beginning of the year excitement and it's not really feasible? Well, sometimes we have to reevaluate that, but a lot of times when we have new energy for a new idea, it is coming from somewhere good, and we can trust that. But then we know the resistance is coming, and that's the part that we don't want. We don't want to have to contend with the resistance, and it's always going to come. No matter how much you want your goal, that resistance will be there. And so what we do is we look at what are the emotions underlying our resistance, and then working, and when we get to that strengthening step, working with, okay, these are false beliefs that's coming up. So I have to bring my attention and focus back to my commitment no matter what, no matter if I feel like it when I wake up in the morning, or if I don't feel like it when I wake up in the morning. I have to commit to that, you know, and things come up, life comes up that, you know, some things are more important for us to deal with during the day than our commitment. And there are going to be days like that, but there's not many of those. Most of the days we can be there with ourselves, strengthening that resolve, which is a derivative of resolution, right? Strengthening that resolve to keep our commitment, but we have to keep bringing ourselves back to that commitment and saying, nope, this is my commitment. I'm committed to this more than I'm committed to the little voice in my head that's telling me, not today. You don't have to do that today. No, I'm bringing it back, bringing it back, bringing it back. And we may have to do that 5,000 times every day. Well, great. That's building up, it's strengthening our will and redirecting it. It's not really, we have will, we all have great amount of willpower. It's just, where is it being directed? And a lot of times it's being directed at those old false beliefs. So we have to extract our will from those old false beliefs and put it into that new commitment. It's energy. If you can think of it like energy, we're unplugging it from the old beliefs and plugging it into the the commitment and the energy for that. And we do that. And a friend of mine introduced me to this may have been around for years, but a friend of mine introduced me to the phrase recently, the greater the resistance, the greater the reward. So the harder we have to work to bring ourselves back to that commitment, the more energy comes to us to support, comes through us to support our commitment. Another example is, I remember I grew up in Iowa, and my grandpa had a well. My grandparents had a well on their farm, and in order to, we always loved going out and getting water from the well because it kind of tasted weird and it smelled weird, and it was cold and it was fun in the summertime. But we would have to pump the water pump. We'd have to kind of crank it a little bit. It was called priming the pump. There has to be a certain amount of pump action in order to bring the water up from the ground. And so we'd pump it, and no water would come out for a while. And we would continue to pump it, and eventually all of a sudden this gush of water would start coming out of this little spout on this pump, and then we had our fun in the water. And it's the same thing. It's like sometimes we just have to keep cranking within ourselves until we feel that rush of like, okay, now this has become part of me. This has become part of who I am now. I own this new commitment. I own this new behavior. And then we have our triumph, and the old thought forms fade. When even like, oh yeah, I don't deserve to go to the gym 3 times a week. Forget you. And it's not even an issue. And whereas before it may have felt kind of looming, those old false beliefs. Then we triumph, and that old fades and the new comes in, and we have that new energy for our commitment. And then what do? Well, we go, okay, great. That was wonderful. I did it. Now I go on to my next commitment, because we're always making new commitments to ourselves because we're always growing. So just to kind of give you a visual of what always happens. And if you read neuroscience, you'll see this is what happens too. Take out the spiritual pieces of that, but it's always about, our brains are status quo organs. Our whole body is a status quo organ. It wants to keep us with what it knows in the moment. And so if we're working to step outside of that box, it takes a while for those new neurons to connect in a new way and to release the old neurons that were pulling us in that old direction that was familiar. And it just takes time to do that. But eventually it's moving smoothly within the energy of our nervous system and our brains and our bodies. And we have embodied that new commitment. So whether we're talking about our our physical vehicles, our emotional vehicles, our mental vehicles, our spiritual vehicles, this is all the process all the time. And we're always coming up with resistance to moving into our commitment, into that part of us that is expanding and growing. So I'm going to stop sharing. And I'm sharing this with you today for you, but also for myself. So we are going to just work with bringing our attention back to our center. And when we do that, we are committing to that center. That's what our Monday morning meditations are about, committing to our center, bringing ourselves back. I wanted to throw that other idea in because we're doing it every time we sit down to meditate. All the thoughts come up, or the body sensations, or the noise around us, and our attention goes to those different places. But our job is to just bring our attention back to the center. Like when we're talking about our commitment, we bring our energy from those distractions back into our commitment and say, nope, I'm going to do this today. This is what I'm doing. Nothing's going to stop me. And just for one day, that's all I have to do. And then tomorrow will be tomorrow's day. But today is today's day to just bring that back and be on track with my commitment. And in meditation, we're doing the same thing. It's like, okay, we're bringing our attention, our focus back to our commitment. So, all that said, let's just relax in our chairs, the space that we're in. Take a few deep breaths as needed to let your mind body system melt into the space you're sitting in. Feel a light moving to the top of your head, all the way down your feet. And if you can have that light be whatever temperature you need it to be, it's a warm, healing light or a cool, soothing light. Just let it, just feel it coming in through the top of your head, down your shoulders and chest, abdomen, hips, upper legs, lower legs, down into the floor. And then find that place that feels like your center, where you feel calm and receptive, open to that light that's just continuing to flow through you. Filling every cell of your body and surrounding you. Maybe you find that groundedness in your breath, moving in and out slowly at a natural pace, and just following your breath. Maybe your center is in your feet on the floor with that light moving out into the earth, feeling that connection with the earth. Maybe your center feels in your bottom in the chair or your back leaning against it. Just let your attention rest wherever your center is. It's in your heart space, When your mind wanders, which it will, bring it back to that center, just resting there. Let yourself be here now and letting go of the rest of the day, anything else in the future, just being present at that center. We let go of all things in the past. Being right here, right now. We're just practicing being present, practicing not planning, just being. And part of this process is seeing how unruly the mind can be, and not being critical of it, just noticing. And this is where we are our own best friend, gently, lovingly bringing attention back to our center. in this simple practice. Not always easy, but so simple of just bringing our attention back to ourselves, bringing our attention back to our center. Strengthens ourselves in ways that we can only see over time, but so valuable for our peace of mind, for our presence in a moment. Really take a moment to notice that center and how strong it is, how solid, how part of you it is. And that belongs to you every moment of every day. And our job is to nurture that connection, just like we're nurturing our steps towards our commitment. Take this energy that's flowing through us right now, head to toe, shining through every cell of our bodies, into our day, into our week. When we bring ourselves back to this experience again and again, as many times as needed, every day. If you can continue your meditation time, I certainly invite you to do so. If you need to go about your day, just take a couple of deep breaths and let yourself change gears, but bringing that presence and that center, that light with you throughout your day, and touching in with that every day, and looking at your commitment every day and say, okay, how am I supporting my commitment today? How am I supporting my commitment today? Watch for that resistance that comes up, because that's information of what needs to be weeded out. We say, oh, thank you for sharing that it's too hard. Thank you for sharing, but I'm going to do it anyway. And just being present with yourself, your commitment. Your commitment is the path that you're laying before yourself to follow. So very valuable and a great anchor in your everyday life. So work with that this week, and we'll keep working with this throughout the year, because we are always about our center. We're always about taking that presence into our everyday lives, because that's the only way to get anything done. Have a wonderful week, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Bye-bye.